All right, guys, guess what? It is stances. So I want to be going over our inward leaning and our dragon stance today. So the big thing that we use our inward leaning for is a movement into our opponent, but we're starting to bend this back knee because this is a check. And what do I mean when I say a check, right? Well, a check is anything where I'm putting my body on my opponent in an effort to understand where they are. All right, when I am in my self-defense, when I am attacking a person, or when I'm mixed up in an altercation, I want to know where my opponent is at all times, but I can't be reliant on my eyes and my head motion. I need to be able to use my other senses, and particularly my sense of touch. All right, and a check is good for a lot of things. Number one, yes, like we just talked about, knowing where our opponent is without having to look at them. Also, the inward leaning is a disruption of their own knees and therefore their balance. If I can constantly be disrupting their knee, they're gonna have trouble planting firm to get a good hard strike on me. So this is enormously useful for just keeping your opponent from establishing balance. All right, and what I wanna do when I'm performing my inward leaning stance is I wanna move into my opponent here, okay? Now, I don't need this to be like a super big lunge. I'm not trying to duck under anything. Like I said, what I'm using is my momentum to attack my opponent's knees. And so when I move in, boom, that's all I really need right here. And this can be done a couple of ways, depending on if they're throwing, like let's say I'm in a right guard stance right now, and they're throwing a left hand punch and that left foot's in front, I'll use my front knee to attack their front knee. Or if they're throwing a left-handed punch, okay, so from right here, and that's coming across, I'll come all the way inside, boom, and I'll use this knee to attack their other side. I can also use this to move to the weak side. So as that punch is coming in, boom, here I am attacking the knee with my inward leaning, okay? And that is what we want. That is the goal of our inward leaning stance, is to disrupt our opponent's balance. Make sure that when you're executing this technique, you get a forward motion, okay? So I always like to use visual references. So I've got this line where my mats meet right here, and I wanna cross that line here, okay? So if you see me from the side, here, boom, okay? And back. It should be like a step drag. Here, moving into my opponent, taking their space. All right, now, that is our inward leaning stance. Next is our dragon stance. Ooh, I know, right? Cool name, okay? So our dragon stance is a utilization of a kick coming at our head or a punch coming at our head, and we simply want to get away. That's all we're doing, all right? And we can use this stance and its depth for hip mobility training. So boom, here, kind of like a side lunge or a side squat, all right? But basically what we want is we're not gonna let the front foot move, and we're gonna maintain our ground. We're not retreating. It looks like we're retreating because our back foot is moving away, but because this foot is still occupying space, I haven't really moved, right? I haven't given up any ground, so to speak. And so I just want to be able to move here, and I usually like to step out. If you remember the back stance video from earlier this week, we talked about creating depth. And I'm not talking about depth in getting close to the ground, I'm talking about 3D accompaniment, like just being able to take up more and more space. So I don't just want to move on a straight line, I want to move on the vertical axis as well. And what this is going to do is when I decide to come back, boom, it creates a nice avenue for my hip to turn so that I've either got a rear leg kick or a rear hand punch, okay? And this just helps keep my hips in the fight, because a lot of us make the mistake of turning completely sideways. And what did we just lose? We just lost half of our weapons. We lost our back kick and our backhand punch, okay? I don't want you to do that. I want you to make sure to step in a way that you create a lane so that now all four of my weapons are available to me in my counter attack. So again, proper execution. Here's my guard. I'm gonna move back and out, and I'm just trying to sit up. The other thing that you really want to focus on is your posture. You don't want to lean away. You want to keep your back engaged in the fight here, and then depending on your hip mobility and your talent and what you're trying to go for, this stance can take on a really big set. This is also a really good drill to do if you're practicing like wushu katas, or maybe some katas with some bigger, longer stances like kusanku. This is an enormously beneficial stance to be practicing just for the hip mobility alone. So one more time, I'm in my guard stance. I'm gonna move back and out. Posture up, okay? And then you can start to incorporate hand motions or kicking motions or any number of other things on top of this to accompany your training. All right, guys, that was our inward leaning stance and our dragon stance. Until next time, train hard, fight fast, score first. Asai.